This is a quick video just to show how I make my own paper and my own books. So to give you an idea, this one here is another book that I've made. It's not the one in the video because it's been a little while since I made the video, but basically I make the paper, I bind the books, and then I cover them as well. And so this is a really quick overview of the different process. When I say really quick, the whole process takes me probably about 4 hours. I have added it all up and I will put the total at the end, but it's a really long process, and especially when I was filming as well, it took me a long time to get all the footage and get everything together. So basically I'm going to give you a run through of how I make the paper. For this book I've used a magazine. Often I actually just use recycled paper, so I collect a lot of recycled paper, especially coloured paper, and then turn it into my own paper. And then I bind the books together, and then I cover it using some beautiful Japanese silk fabric that I've just got lying around. So let's get to it. For this book I've used a magazine. Usually I use recycled paper, but this was a special one for a friend and I wanted to use something that she has read and is familiar with. So firstly I just went through the magazine and ripped out any pages that had interesting images or patterns on it and put them aside. Next I removed the cover of the magazine, then set about cutting out the pages. So by removing the glue on the binding of the magazine so that it didn't get included in the paper making process. The next step is ripping up the paper into smaller pieces. This makes it easier for the paper to break down in the water and also to blend when you get to that point. So I'm just adding water to my ripped up paper. I'll leave it to soak for about 12 hours and then I'll come back in with a stick blender and start blending. I find as you blend it's good to keep adding water, and here I've transferred some of the paper pulp to a new container so I can add more water and the blending process is more easy. It actually makes quite a lot of paper. I got about 4 batches of 20 sheets out of this one magazine. So the next step is making the paper. So I have everything set up here, the bath of water, my paper pulp and the decal. So I start off by adding a handful of paper pulp to the bath and swirling it around. The next step is to insert the decal. So you want to do this slowly so the decal does not come apart, and make sure that the covering of pulp over the top is even. I then rest the decal on top of the bath so that the water drains off evenly. Next I'll put the fabric over the paper and sponge it off with my bath sponge because I lost my other sponge. This is just removing any excess water from the decal. And again, I'll just wipe it down once more. Next, I peel the paper away from the decal. Then I flip the paper on the fabric over to make sure it sits nicely against the wooden base. I like to do this because the first lot of paper will create a flat side against the wooden base and be really nice to draw or write on. Then I repeat this same process until I have no fabric left. It takes a little while and you can see that occasionally it doesn't work as well as you'd like. So if I find that the paper comes off badly, I will peel it off and start again by rinsing off the fabric and redoing the decal. Repeat this process about 20 times until there's no fabric left. And for this book, I did 2 batches of paper. next step is to remove any excess water from the paper by clamping the two wooden boards together and squeezing out the excess water. Since making this video, I've actually invested in a book press, which is amazing and does a much better job, but also clamps and a vise do work really well. In between clamping and removing, I leave it for about 15 minutes just to get any excess water out. The next step is I will peel the fabric away from each individual piece of paper so that there's one piece of fabric with paper attached to it, and leave it out to dry. The two pieces attached to the board will stay on the board until they are dry as well, making sure that you've got that beautiful smooth side on one side of the paper. Once the paper is dry, it peels off quite easily from the fabric. You still want to be careful because you can rip the paper as it is quite fragile. So I'll simply peel off all the paper from the fabric and place them into two piles. Once this is done, I use something heavy to hold the paper down to flatten it out. Now I have my book press, I just use that, but in the meantime, a stack of magazines or books are really useful. I'll leave this weighted down for about 2 to 3 days, depending on how much time I have, just to make the paper really flat.